Hello, this is a little video about why it's hard to slow down and rest. And why is this relevant to cultural repair? Well, I want to kind of put you on to Tricia Hersey if you haven't come across her already. She has a book called Rest is Resistance and a very excellent blog called The Nap Ministry. And she does a great job of exploring how rest is an act of resistance against oppression and capitalism. So I very recommend that. And completely agree. So I've been working on this process in myself about how to have a slower life and include more rest for about a decade now. And I've also worked with a lot of clients in therapy about this process. So I just wanted to share some of the key kind of edges to change that I've seen related to this. And what I mean by an edge to change is this. It's just this place of inner conflict when we're in a change process of some parts sort of going, yes, I really need this change, I want it, I feel it, like it's the right path very deeply. And other roles that go, don't do it, don't change, you'll mess up everything, it'll be the end of the world. This kind of inner yes, no, right, it's a really important grappling space. It's not a pathology, it's normal and essential, right? Or normal, you know what I mean? So edges to rest. Here's some of the inner dialogue things against change that frequently come up. First one is like, if I stop, I'll never want to start again. Now this is a common inner narrative process, or in change processes, the idea that we'll completely flip from how we are now to like this idea of change, and that like we'll be a completely different person. Now I've just never seen this happen, actually. And I do notice with the rest thing, it's more, it doesn't really look like that. It's like you just learn to take more rest. You don't completely flip into never wanting to work again. Usually after enough rest, you're keen to get back into doing things, or you get more inspiration. So I've never seen this. But it's a common thing that happens around almost any change process. This worry that we'll completely flip our identities. The next one that's also again common in most change processes is when we tell a story that an impossible solution is the only solution. So in this context, we'll say naps or short breaks in the day or getting to bed earlier, that won't cut it. I need 6 months off my life, right? And so that kind of the impossible solution is the only solution is just a really nifty defense mechanism for making any change. And of course, it's not true. What rest actually looks like in this process is less relevant to learning to make space and get permission to do it. So I always say like little tiny ways to cross that edge to make the change, they make the difference, they are the big work. It's not about a big external change necessarily. Very rarely, very occasionally it might be, but like 1% of the cases or something, right? Small. There's another common inner narrative around being lazy or indulgent, which I would just say, yeah, go read Tricia Hersey's work. That's just going to help reframe this narrative that gets put on people around their basic biological need for rest. There are a couple of deep existential fear type things that I think sit in this process as well. One is that busyness helps reinforce a delusion that we're in control of the world, which is a big issue for Western Anglo-European cultures, I think, is this kind of centering ourselves as gods or something that control everything. Busyness really supports that, and rest and slowing down looks like it opens up uncontrolled space where anything could happen and I'm not going to be directing it, and oh my goodness. So I think that's one of the sort of deep existential fears that sit in the background, and that it's kind of really culturally reinforced. The other thing is that creation and change requires dissolution and decomposition in the identity, and our everyday identity will fight against change because it feels like death of a certain kind at a very, very deep, subtle level. So that's just really normal. There's nothing wrong there. And there's lots of different ways in which that sense of death of identity could sort of look like, right? It's like feeling like we will lose status or social power if we make changes to slow down our life. We won't be able to keep that fast-paced job or blah, blah, blah. And there's also a gain of creativity or relationality or spirituality that scares people as well, right? It's like, oh no, what if I'm going to be one of those people or something like that, right? Which links to the third thing that I think is quite deeply wired in us, because we're so driven for belonging is a worry that I won't fit in anymore, and that I will lose social connections and I'll end up lonely. And being alone or lonely is like really not good for humans. Most humans, of course, there's always exceptions. Now, it actually just could be true that some social connections won't survive that kind of change, but that's okay, that's not a failing. And the thing is that slowing down and resting does make more space for more social connection, and deeper social connection, which can be linked to another fear, right? Which is we can get afraid of like having deeper relational experiences. So I don't have answers for all of those things, right? I'm just kind of pointing out here are some of the things people grapple with. They're really common grappling things that I've come across. So if that's the kind of things you're grappling with too, you're not alone. I do have a few extra thoughts about it though that might be, helpful. I think this process is a lot about learning to notice your own signals of tiredness and having had enough, and developing the inner permission to take some rest in those moments if you can, even if it's like there's one day a week you can do it. But I do know a lot of people work from home now, and I'm quite sure a lot of them could fit in a 20-minute nap in the afternoon instead of a chocolate bar or something sweet or sugary or caffeinated. So not pushing through and not reaching for stimulants when we get tired, I think it's like a good place to start. And then also noticing when we're interested in something and curious and we feel energized and we want to get into something, it's like that's a good time to do it. So noticing signals both ways. The other thing is to remember it won't be easy to start or maintain a change process like trying to slow down. You'll kind of come and go in and out of what you feel like success, right, in this process. I think it's all success, just whether you're working on it, whether it feels like it or not, right? And because we have to like not assume that this is a personal issue, personal failing, or your personal psychology when you find yourself getting really busy again. Busyness and overriding the body is a cultural pressure being applied all the time. So resting is actually really difficult, and resisting that pressure is really difficult. So I think, don't give yourself a hard time if you're struggling to do it. It's a big cultural issue. The last one is understanding that your inner resistance is mostly generic resistance to change, and most of the narratives are really just fundamentally incorrect. And you can do some work on correcting, actually, like informing yourself. Don't place too much stock in the content of your resistance, I think. It's just knowing, of course I'm going to resist change. I still know this is the right direction for me, so let me take my first small step. I'm a big fan of starting small because I think it's the pattern and the permission internally rather than the external action that is most important. So you can Google strategies or, research a bunch of strategies and also learn about what actual rest is. Some people do things they think are restful, but they're still quite adrenalizing. So getting a bit of a sense of what is rest and what does rest mean for you. I would really check out Tricia Hersey's The Nap Ministry to really power up your inner yes for changing in this process. I think it's very motivating. And learning about sleep. And there's lots of books you could read. I learned a lot from Night School by Richard Wiseman about nap lengths and sleep hygiene and circadian rhythms. If that's a way that helps you change, I would recommend doing that. Also getting a buddy. If you need a buddy to kind of go, hey, I'm trying to learn to rest, is that something you're interested in too? Or have you got a change thing you're working on? Let's buddy up and just kind of, find mutual support in that, whether that's a friend or even it could be like people online. But I do think friends are like a good way to do it because this is a cultural repair thing and it's such a cultural process. It's not your individual psychology so much. And I always think any kind of cultural work needs to be collective work. The last thing I would say, I know everyone says this, is but stop saying I'm busy. We have to rewrite our inner narratives about our identity, because I am busy, it's like we've given ourselves an adjective for our identity rather than I have a lot on this week. Or, my calendar is very full. It's very different to I'm busy. Okay, that's it. I think I hope that was useful. If you have any other kind of thoughts about those inner narratives or ways in which you found to get inner permission for learning to, for slowing down or for resting, I'd love to hear about it. Stick them in the comments wherever you're seeing this video. And yeah, I hope after watching this you could take a quick rest. Thanks. Bye.